Have you ever had a stray thought that gets stuck in your head and it won't leave until you do something about it? Because I have. Specifically, I was thinking about this old TV show called Out of the Box, where the characters would, well, think outside the box to create a bunch of crafts and whatnot, and showcase that creativity is endless. But then I thought, what if I want to put something inside a box? Like putting Kingdom Hearts in a box. Anyway, my name is Timber, and today I'm going to be putting Destiny Islands inside a box, specifically an Altoid mint tin. Also, happy March Caprice. I'm very excited to be able to participate once more. So, after my initial thought of wanting to put something in a box to create a KH-related diorama, I needed to think of what I wanted to immortalize. I decided that Destiny Islands with its beach theme would be perfect, so I did some research. I ended up pulling up a map of the islands from NoClip. Which is this great website that's basically a digital museum of video game maps and levels, including Kingdom Hearts. I poked around the map to find a perfect focal point, which I decided would be looking at the island from the small outcrop where Riku used to beat the crap out of me when I was younger. To start my journey, I went looking for an Altoid mint tin from my local supermarket, which, can I say, was honestly harder than I thought it would be, because I ended up going to 4 different stores to find them. I even picked up 1 extra in case I messed the first one up, and I also found this weird cotton candy mint tin that I was going to use as a last resort. So let me know which other world you'd like to see put in a box, and I'll do it. The first thing I did was use the tin to make a blueprint for my project to help me when measuring the size of everything else I needed to make. Second thing I did was make sure the tin was ready to be painted on. So, first things first, let's get rid of these. There we go. I picked up some white spray paint primer combo from my local craft store to get the metal ready. I decided to sand the inside and the outside of the tin to give the primer the best chance of sticking to the metal. Then I set up in my parents' garage and got to work spraying. I ended up spraying about 3 to 5 thin coats on both the inside and the outside of the tin until I was happy with the results. You could still see some of the writing on the tin, but I wasn't worried. Once that was dry, I put on some base colors. I started with the outside. I mixed a sandy yellow color for the bottom and a blue color for the top. I think I put about 4 thin coats on until I couldn't see any of the white in my brush strokes. This was the point where I decided to superglue the lid open because I thought it would be easier to paint. After, I moved on to the inside. I put a sky blue on the top and the same sandy color for the bottom again. I had tried to experiment with the sandy color to see if I could add an ocean blue tint to it, but ultimately it didn't really work, so I scrapped that. This was also the point where I regretted gluing the tin open because it was so much harder to reach my brush inside to paint the lid, so whoops. With that done, I decided I wanted to slap the Destiny Islands logo to the front. No, not a paper logo, a painted logo. I did use the paper cutout as a guide, though. I didn't film this part because actually it took me almost 3 hours to paint, but this is the finished product. I also decided to paint the bottom of the tin black. Now it was time for the inside. The first thing I did was add some hot glue to fill this weird gap that forms when the lid is open. I also wanted to create a slope where the sand would lead into the water, so I used some foam sheets. I cut out 3 layers, each shorter than the other, and glued them on top of each other. I beveled the edges with an X-Acto knife, primed it with gesso, painted it a sandy color, and glued it down to the bottom. I decided that I should probably trace out what was going where in the tin using my diagram as a guide. Next, using some gray polymer clay, I started making some of the structures. Here's the result. Instead of just painting the background into the lid, I decided that I wanted to add some dimension, so I even made some details out of clay to glue to the back as well. Next, it was time for a paint job. At first, I was going to be cool and try to underpaint some shadows like how you would when painting miniatures, so I mixed some black acrylic paint with water and brushed it on and then wiped off the excess. But that didn't work, probably because I wasn't painting on a primed surface. Well, you win some, you lose some. Instead, I painted a base coat, then used the watered down black acrylic to give it some shadow, and finished it off with dry brushing some highlights. I also painted some extra little details. I also created some smaller details out of clay, like the bridge between the island, a cross-section of the seaside shack, some small palm tree logs, and some small stones to make a little wall with. I used some contact cement to glue everything in place. Also, PSA, do this in a well-ventilated area and not a tiny room with a closed window, because I did that and it stunk. The only things I didn't glue in place right away were some of the smaller details as well as the little island, because I found something cool I wanted to try on the bottom first, which was this diorama sand. Now, normally I would just go outside and grab stuff from nature instead of spending money, but I live in Canada, which, yeah, that wasn't gonna happen in the winter. So the diorama sand ended up being this paste. I applied it with a paintbrush that I didn't really care about, which was good because the paintbrush totally got ruined. I applied it in little coats and built it up slowly over time. In hindsight, I definitely didn't need to paint the inside of the Altoid tin or the foam sand because this stuff was actually pretty thick. After my sand was dry, I mixed up some resin. To do this, you take equal parts resin and hardener, mix them together, and pour. Honestly, I eyeballed everything, which is probably not ideal, but I haven't messed it up yet, so there must be some wiggle room for error. I also added a couple drops of blue resin dye to make it look more like water. I also used a plastic pipette to pour the resin to avoid any accidental spillage. To get rid of any air bubbles at the surface, a great hack is to use a lighter to pop them. I used a barbecue lighter so I wouldn't burn myself. After After the resin finished curing, it was time for some finishing touches. First was putting on some flocking, which will act as the leaves. I had a bunch of flocking to use that I've amassed over time. Contact cement was once again my best friend. After that, I installed the bridge, created some side rails with little pieces of polymer clay, and added in my palm tree trunks. I saw someone make palm leaves using wire and green painter's tape, and I decided I wanted to try that. It actually worked pretty well. After a few more small touches, it was complete. And with that, Destiny Islands was officially placed in a box. I really like how it turned out. It was a fun exercise in seeing how I could downsize things while also maintaining a good level of detail. If anyone wants to see another Kingdom Hearts world put in a box, send me some suggestions. Once again, happy March Caprice, and enjoy the rest of the festivities.